在阴阳路附近有一组马路由一个花种命名。Vanda 万代兰是胡姬花品种中的一个，而其中最有名的就是我们的国花卓锦万代兰 Vanda Miss Joaquim。花名里的卓锦小姐到底是谁？ Agnes Joaquim 是一名亚美尼亚裔女子。1854年，她在喜街33号的卓锦府出生。
She's actually a second-generation Singaporean, and she was the eldest daughter in a large family of 11 children. Agnes, being the eldest daughter, of course, took on much of the responsibility to help her mother, but at the same time, she followed her own interests, needlework and gardening. And as a young woman, she did lead an interesting social life.
Nadia 医生专门研究新马一带的亚美尼亚人，她和卓锦家族成员常保持联系，其中一位就是 Agnes 妹妹的曾孙
Linda。Agnes is my great-grand-aunt. The reason it was really lauded the way that it was is because it was the first hybrid in Singapore. And I later discovered that actually Agnes was the first woman in the world to create a hybrid, at least that's in recorded history in the Royal Horticultural Society records, which is the world's orchid record keeper. So it was a very, very big deal. And it was a very beautiful orchid.
卓锦小姐一家都很喜欢种植 ，Agnes 在这方面也有所天赋。从1881年到1899年间的花展里，赢了70个奖项。除了花朵，她栽种的蔬果也获奖。
In 1893, she collected 10 first prizes and 2 seconds. And the following year, she achieved 7 firsts and 8 seconds. But the whole family was very interested in gardening. Her brother Joe had a fine collection of Vanda teres and Vanda Hookeriana orchids. Her mother was an excellent horticulturist and won even more prizes than Agnes in some years. Her younger sisters also exhibited. In fact, the whole family was very interested in gardening.
And in about 1893, March, April, it was taken to actually Singapore Botanic Gardens, where we are, to a man called Henry Ridley, who was the first scientific director of the Botanic Gardens. And he examined it, he looked up records, he could find no example of it in anything and determined that it was a new hybrid. He named it for Agnes and labeled it accordingly and put the samples into the archives. He then wrote a piece that was published in the Gardener's Chronicle, which was a very eminent gardening chronicle in the UK, in London. And in that, he basically talked about the fact that a Singapore lady had basically crossed these 2 plants, Vanda teres and Vanda Hookeriana, to create this hybrid orchid, Vanda Miss Joaquim.
卓锦万代兰在国外也掀起了一波热潮，在英国、美国、菲律宾、夏威夷等地方红了起来。
Henry Ridley sent a cutting off to his friend Sir Trevor Lawrence, who was one of the most famous orchid breeders in England. And he raised it to flowering stage in 1897, and it was shown at the Royal Horticultural Flower Show. And interest in that orchid just spread throughout Europe amongst collectors.
True or not, I have no idea, but family story is that one of the reasons Agnes was not so keen to go and show her orchid was she was actually growing it and selling it. She was making money from it. Another story is that one plant was actually taken to England and sold to the Rothschilds for what would be the equivalent of $85,000 in Singapore money today. But nevertheless, the plant basically was used as a flower that could be bought in every flower shop in Singapore during the time.
1981年，卓锦万代兰成为了新加坡的国花。
Since Singapore has gained a worldwide reputation as an orchid center, the orchid logically stands out from a variety of other flowers as the ideal choice of a representative flower for Singapore. I'm pleased to announce that the orchid Vanda Miss Joachim has been officially adopted as the national flower of Singapore.
So here it is, our national flower. The Malaysians have their hibiscus, the Dutch their tulips, the Japanese their cherry blossoms. Now the Singaporeans have their Vanda Miss Joachim.
Yes, we're incredibly proud. We were all very excited, my mother especially. She was so proud that her aunt's flower had been recognised in this way. And it seemed such a fitting idea because we're sort of a hybrid society, and the plant really reflected that and was one of the reasons that it was chosen.
卓锦万代兰虽受欢迎，但还是有很多人不相信花是卓锦小姐亲手配种的，而是她在自家花园里找到的自然杂交种。2016年 ，Linda 带着 Nadia Wright 医生多年来累计的研究资料，到国家文物局和国家公园局，希望能够把先辈的故事摆正。
I went to National Heritage Board to see the CEO. I showed her all the material. I gave her the full references, and she asked me to leave it with her. And they re-researched everything all over again. So between MParks and NHB, after the homework was done, everything was looked at, they concluded that Agnes would be recognised as the creator of Vanda Miss Joachim.
Linda 也把 Agnes 的故事编写成一本儿童绘本，希望能够把先辈的故事继续发扬光大。
I noticed the children are really intrigued with the idea that these sorts of things could happen such a long time ago. Even more so that there was a woman who was doing it, especially young girls, they see her as a bit of a role model because also she didn't give up. You know, she dealt with the failures that came her way and just pursued her ambition until she achieved what she wanted to achieve. And I think that gives children a lot of heart, especially little girls.
卓锦小姐带着她新配种的虎姬花，在1899年参加花展，当时还赢了最稀有品种奖。3个月后，那时已患上甲状腺癌的她不幸离世，那时她只有49岁。她的墓碑在亚美尼亚教堂的花园里。